Hello and welcome back to Peaking into Success podcast. We are on episode 26 and today we have on a woman that is the artistic director of Derby Theatre. So if you've been there to at least watch a show, you've most likely seen one of her shows that she has directed. We have on Sarah Brigham.
The Bless is open every day from 12 p.m, serving a wide range of beers, ciders, real ales and spirits. Their kitchen also provides handmade pizzas, loaded nachos, chicken strips and ice cream from 5:50 to 10:30 Monday to Thursday and 12 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. Friday, Saturday and Sunday. The pub quiz is very popular with anyone that enjoys a good beer and a bit of a laugh with their mates. Taking place every Wednesday at 9 p.m, there's loads of prizes to be won, including £50 drinks vouchers for the winners and a bottle of wine for the best team name. Everyone's a winner. They also have a spacious function room available to hire that can hold up to 100 people. Wow, that's a lot. Perfect for birthday parties, work events, weddings and wakes. The Bless really comes to life at the weekends with their branded nights of Stone Love and Fully Loaded, where the DJs play alternative, indie and rock music spanning the generations until the early hours of 2 a.m. There really is something for everyone in what is arguably Derby's best pub.
Hi Sarah, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you for coming on. We work in the same building, so I'm glad that I've been able to get you on. For anyone that doesn't know you, how would you summarise yourself in a nutshell?
Oh, what? 5'3", beautiful, stunning eyes. Oh, that's not what you mean. My name is Sarah Brigham, and I am the Artistic Director and Chief Exec at Derby Theatre. I'm originally from Hull, hence my accent. That's probably important for people from listening to a podcast. But I've been living in Derby now 10 years. So I feel like a Derbian, even if I'm not quite.
You're picking up the mannerisms and everything now.
Yeah.
So how would your story have started? So I've got down Dundee Rep as your first kind of job.
Before that. So grew up in Hull, went to a youth theatre, grew up with a family, didn't especially go to the theatre, but yeah, went to a youth theatre and that made me think this is what I want to do. I went to Bretton Hall to train. Bretton Hall no longer exists. That wasn't my fault. It was part of Leeds University. And then I was an actor initially.
Okay.
So I was an actor for probably about 5 years, and then started directing. And was directing kind of freelance initially with companies like Red Ladder and theatre company blah 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 and companies like that. And then I went to York Theatre Royal. That was the first venue I worked in.
Okay.
I did a little bit of time as well working with a company called Proper Job Theatre, and I did loads of work working with young people excluded from education, working in prisons, working in community settings basically. Then I went to York Theatre Royal and I was youth theatre director there.
Nice.
And then after that I went to Dundee Rep.
Okay.
And was associate director there.
Yes.
And then after that I went down to Winchester and ran a venue just near it called The Point in Eastleigh. And then I came to Derby. So I've moved all over the country.
And now you're settled here.
And now I'm settled here.
So of course you came in at Derby Theatre. Kind of what was your kind of aspiration and your goal for Derby Theatre when you came in? What was kind of your first initial thoughts when you took on the job?
So when I got here in 2013, the theatre had been kind of closed and open and closed and open, and the university had just kind of taken ownership over it properly, like fully. And I suppose what I wanted to do was really embed it into the community, to be honest, so that it could never be closed again. Like, that was my first thought, was like, I never want to be the director where this theatre suddenly appears like it's not important enough to keep hold of.
Yeah.
So my ambition was to make a theatre that was absolutely crucial to its community, embedded in its community, and had its eyes firmly set on Derby. Wasn't thinking, oh, how can we get transfers into London? How can we do this? It was about like, who are our community and what do we need to do for them? So that was it. And then I guess because my career had always been, my career route had always been working with young people and developing work through education and learning and that kind of thing. I wanted to create like this idea of of a learning theatre, so where what was happening off stage was just as important as what was happening on stage.
Nice.
So that was kind of it, really.
So of course you came in, you had your vision, and then of course the first show you were kind of involved with was Cooking with Elvis. So kind of what role did you play in bringing that to the stage?
Yeah, so I guess the first show in terms of directing, so I don't know if it was like, there was a little bit of me that was probably a bit of a wuss and was like, I don't direct the first show because everyone's looking. But I think also, more importantly, I just wanted to get to know the community and the audience first off, rather than just come straight in and just run into a rehearsal room. I was like, I kind of want to understand what it is. So I chose a show that I thought would be popular, Cooking with Elvis, and then I chose a director who I trusted and knew would do a great job.
Yeah.
And I helped put the creative team together and then kind of worked as an outside eye. And that gave me the first kind of 9 months of my job here, where I could just get to know the staff, understand the funding situation, because we didn't have a lot of funding at that time. Arts Council funding had gone away, City Council funding had gone away, like we were, struggling, and really get the building on an even keel without having to go, I've got to disappear into the rehearsal room for 5 weeks and be all consumed with that. So do the other bit of the job, which is the managing of the organisation and making sure we were steady and safe. So that's kind of what I did there, really.
Nice. And then of course the first one you actually directed was Kes. So why did you choose that as the first piece to direct?
So at the time, there was a couple of things happening nationally, which was Michael Gove was then the Education Secretary, and he was stripping the arts out of the curriculum. And we were arriving at a time when we were going like, the arts for young people are really important, and Kes had something to say about that. It's also a really well-known title. It's got a film attached to it, so I knew that it would be like popular with audiences, but I felt like it had something to say there and then. And we had a professional cast in it of about 9-10 people, but then we also put a young company into it of like 30 young people.
Okay.
And my favourite ever production image is from that production, which is all 30 young people on stage dressed in school uniforms and flicking the V's at the audience, because that's the famous image from the film, and we recreated that. So so that was the reason for choosing that, really. It felt like it was saying something about what I believed politically at that time and what needed to be said, but it also was popular, and it was also kind of giving an opportunity to the young people of the city as well.
Nice. I kind of delved into your shows and kind of looked at creative team and actors associated with the performances, and it shows that you use a lot of people that are local, and you kind of use, in a sense, old reliables. So you use a lot of people, if you've used them before, you go back and you use them again. So kind of what's the
about?
basis of that, and why do you choose to do that?
So it's a bit of a mixture, really. So sometimes it's about a creative relationship. So it's for lots of reasons. Sometimes there's some creatives who you work with, and you've got like a shorthand. So we rehearse relatively in quite a short amount of time, and we tech really quickly here. So if it's a creative who understands my way of working, I know they're going to produce the goods, they're local to the city, and we've got a bit of a creative shorthand. So I know that we can get to where we need to get to. There's also an element of, as you know, like I live with cancer.
Yes.
And so I never know when that illness is going to impact on me. So I need to know that I've got a creative team around me who can support me at those moments.
No.
So that's really important as well, just from a purely selfish personal point of view. And then it's about, what I try to do is do a mixture of kind of people who are like you say, reliables, and then find space within the team for new emerging talent. So if you take like Jekyll and Hyde, which was the last drama that I directed, so the creative team were kind of dependables, I suppose, but then like Tiffany had her stage debut, James had his stage debut, Simeon, it was the first show he'd lighting designed at that level, but they're surrounded by a safety net of people who really know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I can then go, okay, I know that person is going to need a bit more of my attention, but actually I don't need to worry about the sound, or I don't need to worry about whatever, or I don't need to worry about the set, because they know what they're doing, they know the space, they know the people, they know the team, etc. But I can focus in on that person who I'm bringing through in a different way. So that's the ambition, really.
No, that's nice. And I mean, there's a lot of people that have worked in the theatre in different capacities that you have brought in to kind of give them the chance to perform on the stage. And you had, of course, back in the day, you had Brian Weaver, of course, as well, which you kind of got local talent in. So kind of how do you choose your like up and coming people? Is that something where you might get someone else to kind of look out for people, or do you personally choose them yourself?
Yeah, so I think I'm out seeing shows all the time. So like last week I was in Chester and in London just seeing shows and getting to know people, and I meet people a lot. Like I have a lot of one-to-ones with artists and understanding. So actually, funny you should say that, behind us we have my whiteboard which tells you all the shows that I'm thinking about, and then in that corner you'll see a list of names, and they're kind of people who I've met who have like said, oh, you know, I'm really interested in directing. How can I get into directing? And so I've kind of got them on a list, and I'm like, okay, they're all at different levels. Like some of them are like right at the beginning of their career, some of them are really established. But as I'm mapping out projects, I'm always thinking, okay, how can I give that person a chance? Okay. Like, is this show too big for them in terms of where they're at, or can they do that, or do you know what I mean? So I'm always trying to map that across. And then similarly with actors, especially, I think a local theatre should serve its local artistic ecology. So if there's an actor from Derby and they get in touch, then I'm always like, right, I've got them on a list, and then as projects come up, I'm kind of comparing them, going, okay, are they ready for that yet? If not, is there a smaller show? Do you know what I mean? Like where, and if not, can I direct them to In Good Company for them to get more experience? So it's a real jigsaw.
No, that's nice, and I like kind of the plan that you've got. So I feel like you're bringing people through. You've kind of got a position for everyone, and you're, in terms of the learning theatre, you're making everyone learn no matter what their skill set is. So that's really nice to see. You've got Hiccup Theatre as well. So kind of, how would you explain that briefly?
So that was a company. I think they're about 15 years old now. So that was a company that I used to run before I moved to Derby, and that was with my then partner, who isn't my partner anymore, and we ran that together, and it was a company that's focused on theatre for children and young people. When we moved to Derby, I kind of stepped away from it and went, it's not for me to run that company anymore, so off you go. And the director has taken it into a kind of different direction. But because they're based in Derby, and again, because we have that kind of artistic shorthand, sometimes we make work together. And what that allows us to do, from a very simple point of view, is that they can apply for funding that Derby Theatre can't. So it's a way of making shows better, bigger, have a different angle to them. And they've got a slightly different focus to when we're just making a Derby Theatre show as well. So it just introduces a new flavour. Nice. And we do that, we do that with other companies as well, like Maison Fou, who we commission, and then they get funding from other places, and it just allows us to develop. I suppose the difference with Hiccup is that they invite me to direct, which is great. And gives us another creative pathway in a way that we wouldn't be able to do without their resource. Really.
Okay, nice. And I mean, Hiccup, their kind of style of kind of actor musicians, kind of, I don't know if it's kind of your influence or not, but that kind of bleeds through onto kind of your Christmas shows that everyone calls a panto, which isn't a panto. So kind of, what's the kind of choice of choosing actor musician instead of a straight up play for Christmas?
Yeah, so I guess because so when I arrived here, the Arena did the panto, and there was like some kind of unwritten rule that we wouldn't do panto and that they got to do the panto, which was fine. But I guess like at Christmas, and generally when you're doing a family show, you want all the tricks up your sleeve that you can have.
Yeah.
And something that I think a family show can do that panto doesn't always is that kind of actor musicianship. And it's really great to see, like, when you watch a show and you're like, the actors just picked up an accordion and now they've picked up a violin and now they're playing the cello. Like, that's amazing. And it's really aspirational for children and young people to see that too, because it's like, wow, these are people who look like me and they're playing all these instruments. And it's just another, pardon the pun, it's another string to our bow. Do you know what I mean? It's just a way of engaging, and live music is something that we can offer that, like, cinema can't.
Yeah.
So, like, why not have it, really, if that makes sense?
And I mean, with the whole Christmas shows, of course, you've developed them even further to, of course, be more inclusive. So with the audio description and, of course, the relaxed performances. So how do you alter it to accommodate everyone, if that makes sense?
Yeah. I mean, it changes from show to show, but so if it's a relaxed performance, then that's more about doing something, and lots of theatres do this now. It's about having it, really, that's about the front of house experience. So it's about having a breakout space so that audience members, if it's getting too much, they've got somewhere quiet where they can go. It's about maybe having the house lights up so that people can move around freely. It's about having the music at a more suitable level. So that's kind of thing. Then our kind of integrated shows that have audio description and BSL, that's much more of a creative change, which is about having deaf actors or blind actors in the show and actually developing the work with them at the forefront. So having the BSL integrated into that. And this Christmas we're working with a really brilliant theatre maker called Ben Wilson, who's going to help us do that with for the blind and visually impaired audience as well, so that, like, audio description, they don't have to put some headphones on, it's just woven into the show. And they know what's happening all the time. In the same way that we have done with our BSL shows, where the British Sign Language isn't just at the side and an interpreter's at the side interpreting in blacks. Actually, the sign language is a language of the show, and the actors are using sign language, or, you know, in the same way that they use English. So
100%. No, that's good. And I mean, you're forever adapting what kind of disabilities you are accommodating for. So in the end, hopefully it'll all be in one show and everyone can come and see it.
Exactly.
Of course, you mentioned briefly in one of your answers, of course, about cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of what's your journey been since, of course, being diagnosed, and of course you had the whole fundraising with Brigade, so kind of where's it come from to, like, 2018 to now? Sure.
So, God, that's a big question. Have we got all night? So for me, I was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer called adenoid cystic carcinoma in 2018, and it was a bolt out of the blue. Like, absolutely did not expect it. I don't smoke. You know, wasn't a heavy drinker. Like, there was no reason other than bad luck that I was diagnosed with it. And at the time, my tumour was really, like, it was on my trachea, my windpipe, and my tumour was at a life-threatening point. And the NHS basically said, there's nothing we can do. Which, when you're age 40, is not really what you want to hear. And then but it was really, it's a really rare cancer, and there's very few specialists in the country. So I was just going to doctor after doctor after doctor, and they were just going, we haven't seen this before, we don't know what to do, there's nothing we can do. And so, as someone who doesn't really take no for an answer, I then just did loads and loads of research, and I found this treatment in Germany, which is called carbon ion treatment. And essentially, it's, the way I describe it is, so it's a form of radiotherapy, but the way I describe it is, like, England's got, like, the iPhone 6 and Germany has, like, the iPhone 14 and the iPhone 14 is much better at my specific cancer, because my cancer, it's like what they call a cold cancer, so it doesn't respond particularly well to radiotherapy, doesn't respond to chemo at all. And my tumour was so large they couldn't resect it, they couldn't do surgery. So I had to raise a lot of money to go over to Germany, and I kind of was like, I don't think I can do this. And then some friends sat in my front room and they were like, what if, 100 people gave £600? What if 600 people gave £1,000? What if, blah, blah, blah. And I suddenly went, okay, maybe we can do this. And so we fundraised, and I was really, really lucky. And people were really generous, and I fundraised enough to go over to Germany. So I was there for 6 weeks in 2018, and I had this life-saving treatment, and it stopped the tumour in its tracks, and that was great.
Yeah.
That was really wonderful, and thank you to every single person who did a sewing bee or cycled outside, the front of house staff here did a cycle outside or whatever, everything that happened, sponsored swims, everything. And I think also one of the reasons why my fundraising was so successful was because I'd done all of that, working with young people in youth theatre throughout my career.
Yeah.
All those young people were now in their 30s, and so they were like, oh yeah, that was my old youth theatre leader. So it's oh great. Anyway, so that was then. But the problem with my type of cancer is it doesn't go away. So unlike every other cancer, after 5 years, if it, you're in remission,
yeah.
My cancer doesn't work like that. And it's slow growing and it hides. So there's a high percentage that it's always going to come back because it lives in your nerves. And once you've got it, it doesn't go away. Okay. So you've just got to be scanned every 6 months. So I've been scanned every 6 months. And then a couple of years ago, 2021 I think, they found it in my lungs, so then I had to have lung surgery, which I had, and again that got rid of it, and now we're back to just watching and waiting. So basically I get scanned every 6 months and we just have to wait, but now we're on it, we just have to wait and jump on it whenever it gets there. One day it'll get me, but one day you'll get run over by a bus, and it's you've got a choice of going, well, I can either sit with this kind of sword of Damocles over my head going, oh my God, this, that and the other, or I can just get on with it and just deal with whatever's in front of you. That's what my dad always says, put one step in front of the other, one foot in front of the other, and deal whatever's in front of you. And that's kind of what I do, really. But what I also do now is we now have, due to a brilliant woman called Emma, we now have a UK charity around my type of cancer. And so I'm really active in that. I do a lot of support for people who are going out to Germany, explaining how it works. Do a lot of kind of first line support, so people who first get diagnosed with any type of cancer, not just mine. Okay. And quite often on the end of the phone or on the end of WhatsApp or whatever.
Well, I mean, that shows, of course, even though all that's happened, you're still in a very good position. You're still directing, you're still bringing out pieces of work. And it shows that even if something as big as that knocks you back, that's not damaged your previous legacy or your success, that you're still going on. So I mean, that should be a massive thing. But if anyone's pushed back in any way, to keep going is
definitely.
And
of course, it's hard, and you come up against prejudice, definitely. And there were people who wrote me off, without a doubt. And I came up against a few instances of prejudice, without a doubt, and still do. But I'm really passionate about talking about it, actually, because I think people are embarrassed about it or hide about it, and I'm really passionate about saying I live with cancer. That's what I do, and I'm still living. And you'll find if we went for a walk now, I get out of breath, well, it's I've got half a lung missing, I'm gonna, do you know what I mean? Or if we go for a walk up a hill, I'm gonna have to stop halfway and get my air back, and you adapt your life. And I think people are living and dealing with this stuff all the time, so you can absolutely, you just have to kind of make a decision to continue, I think.
No, 100%. I mean, it's shown. Since I've known you, I've not seen the difference from now to then. So it shows how well the transition's gone. That you still are the same person, and people shouldn't write you off or do anything like that.
And I'm really, and I'm really grateful. I get it. I'm really lucky in so many ways, and I feel gratitude for it every day.
No, that's nice. Shall we focus on your career high now?
Yeah.
Bring it up to the top.
Yeah.
So what would you think your biggest achievement is? It can be out of Derby Theatre. It doesn't have to be confined to Derby.
My biggest achievement, it's really difficult to pin it down to one thing, but to me it's always when there's someone who I've supported is doing well. Yeah. Like, it's whenever I see someone, like, it's maybe a youth theatre member that I've supported and then they get a really amazing job, or it's like an artist who I've helped write a funding bid and then they get the funding, and it's not when I'm centre stage. So it's not like I would go, oh yeah, there was this show that I directed that was absolutely amazing, I was so proud of it. For me, that's like, yeah, that's when I get really excited and a bit tearful. It's when like in a good way, like when I get a bit emotional, when like I just see someone achieving something and I know that I've played a tiny part in that journey. Like, I just love those moments. It really, like, yeah, it just makes me kind of burst with pride, really. So yeah, I think that's, yeah.
Nice, feeding off seeing other people's successes and knowing you've had a part. That's definitely nice. So what would you say the defining moment is in your career? So
I think the moment when everything changed for me was when I was an actor. I was doing this job with a proper job, theatre company actually, and we were touring across Europe. And at that time, so I was about 23, I'd say, and I hadn't even flown like on an aeroplane at that point. Like, and then suddenly I was doing this international tour across Europe, as part of this big European funded project, and it was great. And we were going to like Denmark and Germany and France and blah 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 blah, all these different places. And I remember like one night going, and I was an actor, and that's what I always thought I wanted to be. And then I was one night, I was like, I think it was in Denmark. I was in this hotel, and I was like, I'm not really enjoying this. Like, why am I not enjoying this? I mean, like, seeing all these amazing cities. I was with a company of actors who I really liked. I was doing a play that I quite enjoyed. I was like, I'm not really enjoying it. And I think at that point was when I went, it's not the performance that I enjoy the most. It's the rehearsal period. What I love is you get a text or you get a subject and you have to figure out why you're telling that story and who you're telling it to and how you're going to tell it. And that's the bit that's really exciting to me. And then once it's on stage, I kind of lost interest because then you're just doing the same thing every night. And I was like, that's not for me. And it was only at that point that I went, well, if it's not that, then maybe I want to be in the rehearsal room. And who's in the rehearsal room all the time? A director. And that's kind of when the penny drops that I didn't want to be an actor and I wanted to be a director. And from that point on, that's when I slightly changed my career path and stopped going for auditions for, big shows and telly and whatever. And was like, actually, that's not what I want to do. But I think because I grew up not in a theatre family, I was just like, you work in theatre, you've got to be an actor, because that's all I knew.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it wasn't really until that point when I was like, maybe I don't have to be that, I can be a director. And so that's when I then started to carve my path to where I am now, really.
Well, I mean, it's worked out well for you in the end. What would it have been on the flip side as an actor? You don't know.
Totally. Out at work all the time, probably, because I wasn't very good.
I haven't seen you, so I can't pass judgment on that. What has Sarah Brigham got coming up this year now?
Gosh, right, I'm going to look at my... So, in 2 weeks' time, we start rehearsals for Brostoff.
Yes.
So that's a remount of the show we did in 2015. So, yeah, big show, big cast, loads, it was really popular, so that's that. Then at Christmas, I'm doing Billy Goat's Gruff, which is the show that I was describing that's going to have integrated BSL and integrated audio description, so that's exciting. We made a show at the beginning of this year called Pleasant Land for teenagers that looks at identity. We're taking that to Vienna, so I've got a week doing that. And then I'm also doing some research and development on Alice in Wonderland, which is our show for next year that's got integrated BSL. And then thinking about what the next shows are over the because I tend to work 18 months to 2 years ahead. So I'm already thinking about, okay, what are we doing in 24? What are we doing in 25?
Okay.
So doing all the prep for that. And then the other part of my job, which is the chief exec bit, which is really boring stuff, like doing funding bids and working out our capital and what we're going to do with our building, and thinking about new marketing ideas and stuff like that, basically.
Nice. I mean, I luckily got to see Pleasantland, and I thought that it was good. And I mean, it's a shame that it's in Vienna. But I mean, if you ever do UK, it is good, and I feel like it got everyone in the audience thinking. So it was nice to see, and it was like at the end with the interactions, feedback and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I felt like it was something different to think about, and people go to things nowadays and they come out and they're not thinking anything, they're just thinking that was good or that was bad. And not thinking about the messages, which I feel like that
made you think. I always think like a good piece of theatre is when you come out and you want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If you come out and you go, oh yeah, it was great, should we go to Pizza Express? Then like, it's like, okay, fine, entertaining, but it's not really like moved you. Whereas if you come out and you're like, oh my God, what did you think about that? Or when that character did that really irritated me, or I feel like that's, for me, that's what's like a good bit of theatre, when you've like been involved emotionally.
Yeah, 100%.
That's what I like making.
Nice. We'll go on to the kind of, I call it go back in time, thought-provoking questions now.
Okay.
So what's one piece of advice that you'd give to your younger self if you could go back?
Ooh, probably believe in yourself a bit more. Nice. Because I think like if I think about all the things I didn't do because I was like too scared that it wouldn't work out, or I'm not going to go and talk to that person because what if they, think this of me? It's like, so what? Like, just do it. And I always say that to artists as well, like, just drop me an email. Just come up to me in the bar if you see me and chat to me. And like, I'm not saying I can like answer all your questions or problems, but like, I'm just a human being. Do you know what I mean? But when I was first starting out, I'd look at an artistic director and be like, oh God, no, they're too busy, I can't talk to them. And it's like, well, you can. Do you know what I mean? So I think just believe in yourself a bit more and be probably a bit more confident, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you'd do differently if you went back and gave that advice?
Oh, it's really hard, isn't it? Because you think, like I was talking to my niece the other day because she was debating whether she should move to London or not, and I never did. And I was like, I thought, I wonder what would happen if I'd have gone and lived in London for a few years with that. But then I wouldn't be here. No. So, do you know what I mean? Like, I think the things that I regret are like, eating too many cream pies. Do you know what I mean? Like, but like my career, career-wise, like it's like, well, if you'd have made a different decision, then you wouldn't be where you are. And I really love where I am. Yeah. So, no, I don't think so.
Nice. It's nice to not want to change anything.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I like that. Yeah. Everything happens for a reason at the end of the day.
So. Yeah, I think so. I think you end up in places because of, do you know what I mean? Yeah.
If London didn't happen, then if London happened, you might have still bounced here anyway. So
totally.
We don't know.
Yeah.
I've got some quick fire questions for you.
Okay.
They should all be doable, I believe.
Go on then.
Some are just like on a whim. Some are related to you or Derby.
Okay.
So start it off nicely and easy for you.
Oh no, this feels like a test. Go on.
What's your go-to karaoke song?
Common People by Pulp.
Nice. People can join in, get involved. You want the pub or the place rocking.
Yeah.
So you've got a chef.
Yeah.
And he's making you a meal and getting you a drink of your choice. What are you asking him to get?
A glass of red wine. Get the drink first. And something Thai influenced, I think.
Nice. Yeah. And then, of course, he's going to get one person, dead or alive, to join you.
Oh.
And he's going to get them for you. Who's he going to get for you and why?
Oh, my gosh. Nelson Mandela.
Nice.
Because I just think it's so inspirational. And also seems like a really nice person.
Yeah. And a lot of stories to tell.
Yeah, I have stories to tell.
With the whole prison thing and everything.
Yeah. Believe in what he stood for. Was a bit of a hero as a youngster. Yeah.
Nice. So now we're moving on to Derby based.
Oh, go on.
So, what is your favourite show that you have produced or directed, and why, while at Derby Theatre?
I think my favourite show is possibly, I'm going to say, Great Expectations.
Okay.
Because I loved being in the room, in the rehearsal room, and had a really great cast and really felt like I got under the skin and it was really interesting. But I also loved the fact that the audience had to wear ponchos because they got covered in water.
I remember that, and I remember just having to put them out, and like afterwards you had to use like the dry hoover to kind of clear it up after every show. But and it's something different. What sticks in my mind? So there's two.
Yeah.
Brassed Off.
Yeah.
That press night sticks in my mind, like, and I hope that it's recreated when it's done again in the autumn.
Yeah.
And always, for some reason, Alice with the kind of revolver. And the start of Act 2 with the Big Up the Wonderland Massive always sticks in my head. For some reason, I can just remember that. They're the two shows that stick in my head of yours. Always. So if you could direct a show for Derby Theatre that you haven't done before, what would you choose?
Oh, there's loads. There's a play called Europe by David Gregg, which I really love. I'd love to do Death of a Salesman. I'd love to do a Beckett. I'd love to do a Pinter. I'd love to see The Homecoming. There's loads of plays. There's like literally, I've got like a long list of plays I'd love to do.
And hopefully they're all achievable.
Yeah. But I think what's important as an artistic director is that you make work that's right for the audience, not just shows that you want to do. Because there's some shows I think, oh yeah, I'd love to direct that. And I think, who'd come and see it? No one, except me. So that's pointless. So like, do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, I mean, what's been noticeable, and I mean, you'll be able to say, is of course, Cooking with Elvis, when that happened, I felt like brought in a completely different audience to the theatre.
Yeah.
And then I think you built on that. So you kind of worked out, like the touring companies that you bring in, you kind of clocked who's been coming and then kind of adapted to that demographic.
Yeah, definitely.
And I mean, that shows that with the shows that you choose, like, it's kids orientated Easter and Christmas. Because that's when they're off. Yeah. And then spring and autumn are your kind of more adult performances, but also mostly, I want to say, novel or film based. So like people can come in, or for example, Kes and stuff like that is very much book orientated for schools. So that's nice. If I could get you to do a show,
go on then.
I'd want you to do Of Mice and Men.
Because it's on the list.
I just think they do it in schools. And I don't know, I just got this thing where if I got put to if I did one acting role, I think I'd end up being Lenny. So that's why it's always in my head.
It is on the list.
The last ones I think you'll be able to give a good answer to.
Go on.
So someone comes into Derby, they've never been before, and you've got to show them one place and it's your gem of Derby. Where are you taking them to?
Well, obviously Derby Theatre. I mean, like, clearly. Like, yeah, definitely Derby Theatre. Because there's so much going on here, and they'll meet cross-sections of the community, and they'll get to some brilliant entertainment and a great front-of-house experience. I mean, yeah, that's obvious. If it wasn't Derby Theatre, then where would I take them? Do you know what? I'd probably take them to Markeaton Park. Because I love Markeaton Park. I love Alice Tree and Darley Abbey as well, but Markeaton feels like you meet the community there, and Normanton. I love Normanton as well, but I'd probably take them to one of the parks. I think Derby does outdoor spaces really well.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah.
So to round up, where can people kind of find you, find your work, everything like that?
So obviously the Derby Theatre website, www.derbytheatre.co.uk. I'm on Twitter at Sarah Brigham. That's probably the place where I am most. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, but I generally don't post on them. Or it's just like pictures of my dog, which isn't that interesting. But yeah, probably Twitter is the easiest place to find me.
Nice.
Or drop me an email as well.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Which you can find on Derby Theatre website, I assume. Yeah. No, brilliant. Thank you for coming on and answering my questions.
Thanks.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. It's been a joy.
Want to know what's happening within Derby's black community? Or perhaps you have a story of your own to share? Then look no further than Majatu, your one-stop source for local African and Caribbean news. With our digital news platform and quarterly print magazine, keep up to date on all of the latest in arts, entertainment, food, sports and more. Find us online at mojatu.com.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Peaking into Success podcast. If you enjoyed, please make sure you follow us on Spotify as well as Instagram, where you can see all the updates of who is coming up, as well as who has already been on the podcast, as well as Twitter, where there is information and interaction from me on there as well. Thank you.